This is Happiness Solved with America's happiness coach, Sandy Scarlatta.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I am so happy you're here. Happiness Solved is dedicated to giving you content that is empowering, motivational, inspirational, and of course, a dose of happiness. It's my way to give back to the world and share other people's stories and wisdom. This thing called life can be challenging, and the stories that are shared demonstrate that no matter what you have gone through, you can choose happiness. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to talk to you about shifting your perspective. This is so important because there are so many things that frustrate us or stress us out. And if we were able to shift our perspective of the situation, we would be so much happier. You see, we all have our own perspective, which is the way we view the world. It's like the lens in which we see things. When we shift our perspective, it changes our perception of life. Our perception is the way we think about or understand someone or something, and it is also what we understand or interpret from our five senses. However, our perception is shaped by our past experiences, feelings, and thoughts. Think of it as looking at the glass half full or half empty. In short, when we change our perspective, it changes our perception, which in turn changes our beliefs and ultimately changes our reality. So change your perspective, change your life. It sounds simple, yet it can be very challenging for some to actually achieve. If you would like to learn more about this topic and how to work with me personally, please visit sandyscarlatta.com to schedule a free 15-minute call with me and to get access to a free digital copy of my book, Happiness Solved. I also invite you to join my growing community by texting me at 703-420-3472 to receive daily inspirational messages. Again, that number is 703-420-3472. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed today's interview. Today's guest is Corrie Jones. Corrie is the founder of Untapped, the London-based social media agency for ambitious brands. Since its launch in 2016, Untapped has worked on content, strategy, and advertising with clients around the world, including Virgin Startup, NatWest, Kawasaki Engines, and Omaze. The really cool thing about Corrie is that in 2018, she was nominated Female Entrepreneur of the Year by TMC. Corrie is going to share with us some really great advice on entrepreneurship, especially being a female entrepreneur. So this is really great information and you don't want to miss it. Hello, Corrie. It's so great to have you today. I've been waiting for this for so long. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. It's so lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. I love your accent. I tell you, it's like...
Well, thanks.
I have a good friend of mine. We've been friends for many, many years. We coached skating together years ago, and her name is Daphne. And I can never say her name without trying to put that accent in, but I'm the worst with trying to do an accent. But
My American accent would be equally terrible, so I don't blame you.
I find it really amazing. What was it? It was the Twilight series.
Oh, yeah.
And the star of that, Robert, what's his last name?
Yeah, he's from London.
He's from
London. Not
London.
too far from where I grew up, actually, yeah.
And I saw him on an interview, and I'm like, he's British? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. He does an American accent in basically everything, though, doesn't he?
He does.
I can't think of where he's done it. The only time I think he's done a UK accent is Harry Potter, when he plays Cedric Diggory, and that's very British. But everything else, he just went straight to an American accent.
Yeah, and I find it so fascinating that so many Brits can do it so well.
I'm not one of them. Otherwise, I would be an actress.
All right, so Corrie, I always like to ask people, everybody has a story on how we got to where we are today. What is your story? How did you get to where you are today?
My story is that I graduated uni having studied English, which people would always say to me, it doesn't open any specific doors, but it doesn't close any either. So it's not, something like medicine where you're going to be a doctor. I just knew I wanted to do something to do with writing, and I kind of fell into marketing and was working in 9 to 5 jobs managing social media for various different organizations. And they were quite slow moving organizations where there's a ton of different stakeholders, and social is just the opposite of that. It's so fast moving, and I'd always be suggesting and pitching different ideas for stuff we could do, and I'd always come up against this wall of, well, we've never done it that way before. So, and there was just a lot of tension with how that was working. So I, by some kind of happy accident, was introduced to someone who needed social media help for their startup. And I already had my job, and it was kind of friend of a friend. So I thought, sure, let me help out with this on, evenings and weekends. And it was very casual. I don't think we really had a proper contract in place. It was like a tiny, tiny hourly rate because I just thought this will be something fun to do alongside my job. And that actually turned out to be a lot more fun than the 9 to 5 that I was doing. So when I had a couple of those under my belt and I'd worked with a couple of people part time, I left working for someone else and went freelance, which has now led to 6 years later running the agency that I've got today.
And it's called Untapped. I love that right
It
behind
is,
you.
yes. Yeah, we're Untapped. We work on social media content strategy and advertising for brands that feel very overwhelmed with social media. We're here to help with that.
So when you said that there was tensions, how did you handle, from an entrepreneurial perspective, how do you handle when you're having those tensions with your customers or, situations that you run into?
I mean, it's something that happens so often, isn't it, as an entrepreneur or someone working with clients or customers? I try hard, and we can train the team on preempting some of those situations. So I think by really listening to the client that you're working with and really getting to know them at quite a deep level, you can get to the stage where X person won't like that piece of work because they really value this thing, and we need to do it that way. Um, so that's one thing I'd say, try and sort of preempt these things from happening in the first place, because often it's something that kind of snowballs and could have been nipped in the bud sooner. And then secondly, just getting really used to having conversations that perhaps aren't the most pleasant, happy ones all the time, but actually that you can be quite honest and frank with people and get to that kind of win-win scenario where they're feeling happy and also you've got out of it what you wanted. Because I think often we can find confrontation to be just 100% negative thing, but then actually there's so much valuable feedback that you get from those moments too. So if you can try and view it that way, I think it's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you mentioned your team, just by training them to, do the research, do the groundwork so that you can avoid any unnecessary conflict or tension with your clients.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the dream, that it doesn't even happen in the first place.
Right. So you've had some very high profile clients. So what are some of the
Yeah, we
clients
have.
that you've worked with?
We've worked with a whole range of people. When we first started, it was much smaller startups with very small budgets, like I said, because those are the easiest people to get buy-in from. That, if there's 1 or 2 people in the business, it's not as much of a long sales process to try and win the project. So we've worked with some really interesting kind of growing startups, and then also some larger businesses like Kawasaki Engines, NatWest, Omaze. We do some mentoring and training with Virgin Startup, which is always a really fun one because they have so many cool businesses going through their program that you get to work with people who are maybe small now, but then in like 2, 3 years time, you'll hear the name or see it on a train advert, and you're like, oh yeah, that's those people. So yeah, it's a mix of big and small, but I think it's always such a pleasure, any business owner or any kind of passionate team that we work with. Social media is something that does cause so much aggravation for people internally that we always, whatever part of that sort of business journey we play, it's always so much fun to get involved and help out with what they're doing on social.
So you've worked with BBC and the royal family. What was that like, working with the royal
Yeah,
family?
we
Because,
have.
in America, we're obsessed with the royal family.
Yeah, so this story is that it was years and years ago now, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. Her Royal Highness Princess Anne opened a new campus at the University of Southampton where I was managing their social media. And yeah, it was kind of crazy experience. There was such a buzz around campus because everyone's like, oh, there's a royal family member coming, and there's so much prep and everything that goes into the schedule of when they'll arrive down to the minute and when the car pulls up. And there's lots of like, don't stand too close or don't do this or all of those things. And it was just so much fun. We were live tweeting the event that she was at, and she's got such an interest in kind of science and engineering anyway, which was the new campus that was being opened for the universities. So I think it was a nice fit. But with any event where you're live posting and you've literally got a second to get a really good photo or video for social, and then you have to write the caption then and there and hit post, and it's at such a sort of high profile event, there's a degree of stress that goes into it as well, for sure.
Oh, yeah, I can't even imagine that. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's see. In 2018, you were nominated Female Entrepreneur of the Year by TMC. What an honor.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and it's funny to look back on things like that. 'Cause I was having this conversation the other day with one of our clients, and the founder at that team was saying that he finds it so difficult as an entrepreneur to actually focus on achievements because he'll write down all these goals that he wants to meet, and then as soon as they happen, he's kind of like happy for 5 seconds and then on to the next thing straight away. So yeah, I haven't thought about that one in a while, but it was a really fun thing to be nominated for sure. And I'm very passionate about how we can empower more female entrepreneurs to, feel like it's something that they can do and that they can be confident in, but also how we can get, more funding and things like that for female founders because it's such an unequal space at the moment. So yeah, it's such a good thing to be part of that one.
Yeah. So what would you say to, a woman who is struggling with her business, and, what advice can you give?
I would say, firstly, take a 10-minute break out of the day and write down everything that you know that you're really good at, that is your area that you just absolutely excel in and you love to do it, and then write down all of the struggles that you're having and the kind of skill sets that they relate back to, because having issues in your business, that could be such a wide range of things. It could be finances and not having the funding. It could be sales and needing to improve sales skills. It could be feeling really overwhelmed and needing to delegate more. But if you identify what those things are, you can then see, okay, what are the areas that I'm really good at, and that's something I should be doing, and where actually should I be bringing in a team and people who can help me to get that done. So that's what I'd say to the business part of the question. But as being a woman in business, I'd say don't let anyone make you feel lesser than them because you're not a man in business. There's a crazy lexicon around how we refer to female entrepreneurs as, like girl boss or CEO was one I saw on LinkedIn the other day, which I was like, oh, that's the worst. And you'd never hear someone say, he's a male entrepreneur or he's a male CEO or he's a male boss or all these things that we say about women. So yeah, just I'd say be aware of the differences that there are, but don't approach it from a point of view where other people are trying to put you in that box that you should be in. I think we just need to kind of break free of all of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I guess for me, like, I've always been an entrepreneur and I've always done things, and I've never even, it never even crossed my mind that there is different boxes for entrepreneurs. Like, it was not even in my awareness. I
Yeah,
started my
and
first company in 1998, and I was a women-owned
wow,
business
amazing.
and was trying to get in with, the federal government. And it was just not even in my awareness that there weren't that many women-owned businesses. I was Yeah.
I think it's almost one of those things that when you look at the statistics for it and you think about it too deeply, it kind of becomes this big, like, depressing, ominous thing. But if you just go into it with like, okay, that's obviously something on the periphery that, some people might treat you differently because you're a woman in business, but that it's going to happen in life generally, isn't it? It's not just
Yeah.
business. So it's day to day that will be a factor. And obviously, there's so many extra levels to it in terms of like intersectionality and how we sort of think about that with business. So yeah, it's a tough one, and but something that I think there's more instances where I felt it at the start of business, I'd say, like when we were smaller and when we hadn't achieved so much. Now I think it's something I feel less because I think you can rely more on, the clients that you've had or the things that you've done, and it maybe becomes less of a thing that people focus on.
Hmm. So what was there a pivotal moment in your when you were starting your business where you were like, wow, this is actually happening?
um, yeah, I mean, so many, and I feel like even, yesterday I probably had a moment where I was like, oh, cool, this is happening because if if you're doing it right in business and you're growing at a reasonable rate, there's so many moments where something there's this meme that I saw that really relates to this, that the sound is Kim Kardashian talking, and she says something like, yesterday I thought that nothing made sense, and then I woke up today and everything made sense, and then in an hour I'll be like, wait, that thing didn't make sense. And I'm like, that's so true about running a business because you learn so much stuff at such a fast pace, and then something else will happen, like you have a new client or a new problem or a new team member, and there's another area that you need to kind of upskill yourself on. But the times when early on I thought, wow, this is happening, were when we would win bigger client projects and we'd get busier, and you see sort of the monthly income go up and up, was proof of concept of like, okay, this could be a business that makes money and can last for a little while, rather than at the start when it's just you and you're like, oh my goodness, where is the next invoice coming from?
Yeah, it can be a little stressful.
Yeah, definitely.
So, how do you handle your stress?
With mixed success, probably depending on how stressful the situation is. But for me, resilience is the most important skill that you can have as a business owner. There's no way that you can mitigate against stressful situations, but you can change how you handle and respond to those situations. And resilience is something I think you only get from practice. It's only after you've had several stressful situations that you actually have more of a perspective when something stressful happens, to be able to think to yourself, okay, well, it's not as stressful as the last stressful thing. So then you know that you can handle this new problem that's been thrown your way. Um, Obviously, things like, taking time out for you, going for a walk, deep breath, having a bath, like there's so many physical things that you can do to reduce stress. For me, it's a mix of that, but also just that resilience of thinking to yourself, okay, I've done so much before and overcome so much up until this point. So hopefully that makes the challenge that's in front of you feel a little bit more manageable.
Yes, I love it. I love talking about resilience because you're right. It's something
Mm,
that it's a skill that everybody needs to have, and it's something that gets strong. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger the more you're dealing with those situations. That's great.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience that we haven't talked about?
If anyone would like to know more about what we do, or get some help with their social media, or even jump on a free call and have a consultation with us, then I'd love to chat to any listeners and hear more about them and their businesses. So you can find our website at www.untappeddigital.co, or you can search for me personally on social. On Instagram, I'm at Corrie F Jones, and on LinkedIn, you'll find me Corrie Jones. If you search me, I'll pop up there.
Awesome. And then they'll be able to, if they go to your website, they can schedule the free consult with you there.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Corrie, it was so great talking with you and learning about everything that you're doing. You're a really great example to so many women out there, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed hearing Corrie's journey and how she overcame some challenges and things being a female entrepreneur, because I've certainly been there myself. So I will put Corrie's website in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening today. You can learn more about me at my website at www.sandyscarlatta.com. And as always, I hope that you and your family are safe and healthy, and that your lives are filled with peace, joy, and happiness. Take care, everyone.